This is Ovid's Metamorphoses, translated into English by Alan Mandelbaum. Book 7. Now, in the ship they built at Pagasa, the Argonauts were furrowing the sea. They had already seen the Thracian seer King Phineus dragging out his final years in endless blindness. Boreas's twin sons had eased his sufferings. They'd driven off the harpies, women birds who tortured him. In recompense, the old king helped them chart the way to Colchis. After many trials, led by the hero Jason, they had reached the rapid current of the muddy Phasis. There, when they went to King Aeetes claiming the golden fleece he had obtained from Phrixus, the king agreed to yield the fleece they sought, but only on his terms. He set 3 tasks, horrendous tests, that Jason had to pass. Meanwhile, the raging flame of love has struck Medea, daughter of the king, when she, who struggled long against that passion, sees that reason cannot win again her frenzy. She says, "Medea, you are doomed to fail. The force you face must be some deity. I wonder if this power, or something like it, is not the power known to men as love. Indeed, why do the terms my father set seem harsh to me? But then, they are just that. Why do I dread the death of one whom I have seen but once? First and only time. What led to this? Why am I terrified? Come, quench the flame that burns your virgin breast. Would you, unhappy girl, could do just that? If it could blaze no more, I would be healed. Instead, despite myself, a force that I have never known before impels me now. My longing needs one thing, my reason seeks another. I can see and I approve the better course, and yet I choose the worse. Oh, why do you, the daughter of a king, burn for a stranger? Why? Why must you dream of wedding one whose world is alien? You can in your own land find one to love. The fate of Jason, life or death, depends upon the gods. But I do hope he lives, a hope that would be rightful even if I did not love him. Well, after all, what wrong has Jason done? How could one be so cruel as to ignore his noble birth, his youth, his worth? But even if he lacked all these, would Jason's face alone not be enough to stir one's heart? At least my heart, the heart he has entranced. If I don't take his part, he will be blasted by the bull's hot breath, and then face foes that he himself begets, sprung from the very soil that he will sow, or else fall prey to the voracious dragon. If I let him become their victim, then I must confess that I am a tigress's daughter, who carries steel and stones within her breast. And why don't I look on as Jason dies? Why would that spectacle defile my eyes? Why not incite the bulls and savage foes the earth engenders, and the sleepless dragon? Oh, gods, no, forbid that! Yet, why do I pray? I have to act, but shall I then betray my father's kingdom? Be the one to save this foreigner, I only know his name and nothing more, who then can sail away without me once he has escaped the fates and marry someone else, while I remain alone to face the penalty I'll pay? Oh, if he is capable of that, if he can choose another woman over me, then let him, so ungrateful, die. But no, his aspect is so kind, his soul so noble, and his form so gracious, I need have no fear of fraud. He won't forget my merits. And, in any case, he'll pledge himself to me before I act. I'll have the gods as witnesses, a solemn pact. Why be afraid when all is sure and safe? Begin to work, don't wait, do not delay. Jason will owe an endless debt to you. A sacred marriage bond will join you two. In all the towns of Greece there will be crowds of mothers hailing you as savior. Shall I, borne by the wind, sail off, desert my sister, brother, father, my own gods, my native land? Indeed, my father is harsh, my land is barbarous, and on her part, my sister sides with me. My brother is young, still but a boy, and I, within my heart, can count upon the greatest of the gods. I don't abandon great things. I sail toward greatness. I'll gain much fame for having saved the young Achaeans. I shall learn the ways and manners of a better land than mine, of cities whose renown has reached these shores, of countries known for culture and the arts, and I shall gain the man I'd not exchange for all the gold the world may hold, the son of Aeson. As his wife, I shall be known as the most blessed of women, whom the gods most cherish. I shall touch the very stars, and yet there are reports of certain peaks, I don't know how they are called, that in mid-sea collide and clash. I have heard men speak of dread Charybdis, bane of sailors, she who, girt with greedy hounds, barks in the deep of the Sicilian straits. I may face these, but even as I clasp my Jason, he will shield me as we cross the long sea tracks. I shall fear nothing held in his warm grasp, and if I fear, it won't be for myself, but for my husband. But, Medea, can you hide your guilt beneath the gilded name of matrimony? See instead the shame you'll face, while there's still time, escape disgrace, the fate that waits if you commit that crime. Such were Medea's words. At last she sees the righteous path and duty, modesty, defeated now. Her longing beats retreat. But when Medea, having curbed her ardor, felt stronger and sought out the ancient altar of Perse's daughter Hecate, a shrine concealed by forest shadows, on her way she saw the son of Aeson. and love's flame, which had been spent, again began to rage. Her cheeks grew red, fire spread across her face, and just as a small spark that has been hid beneath a veil of ashes can be fed and grow beneath a breath of wind, and thus regain the force that it had lost, her love, now weak, one could have called it languishing, rekindled when along her way she saw the captivating form of Aeson's son, who chanced that day to be even more graceful than usual. Her trance was pardonable. She saw him, and she stared as if this were the first time he was ever seen by her. Dismayed, she thought her gaze had found the face of a divinity. Her eyes were fixed. But when the stranger started speaking, and, even as he held fast Medea's hand, with his soft voice implored her help and pledged that he would marry her, Medea wept and said, I am aware of what I do. If I'm undone, the cause is surely not my ignorance, but love. You shall be saved, but when that's done, maintain the vow you made. He swore by all the holy mysteries of Hecate, the triform goddess he supposed was in that grove, and by the Son who sees all things, the Father of the one now destined to become his father-in-law, and by his triumphs over such great dangers. His oath convinced her. She believed the stranger, and so without delay the Greek received from her the magic herbs of Hecate. And having learned the proper use of each, delighted, he went back to his own dwelling. When dawn has banished all the glittering stars, the crowds move toward the sacred field of Mars. They throng the heights that ring the combat ground. The king himself has come. In purple robes among his retinue he sits enthroned. His ivory scepter is conspicuous. And now the bulls with their bronze hooves charge out. From adamantine nostrils they breathe flames. As they exhale, the meadow catches fire. And even as a well-stoked furnace roars, or as a lime kiln hisses when they pour fresh water on the lime and it dissolves and starts to boil, so do the bulls now roar with whirling flames pent in their chests and throats. Yet Jason moves ahead. The bulls are grim, their horns with iron tips are leveled at him. They paw the dusty ground with their forked hooves. They fill the field with bellows and hot smoke. His Argonauts are terrified, but he, his herbs are powerful indeed, draws near. Untroubled by the gusts of heat, he dares to stroke their hanging dewlaps with his hand. He thrusts the bulls beneath the yoke, compels those beasts to pull a massive plow, to furrow a field that never felt a plow before. The Colchians are baffled, but his men urge Jason on with mighty shouts, and then from the bronze helmet he draws out snake's teeth and scatters them on the plowed field as seed. These teeth had first been steeped in potent venom, Earth softens them. They grow, take on new forms, just as a fetus gradually takes within its mother's womb a human shape, acquiring harmony in all its parts, and only sees the light that all men share when it is fully formed. So here, the likeness of men, perfected in the pregnant earth, sprang from the soil. And what is even more miraculous, each man was armed and clashed his weapons at his birth. But then this dread assailed the Greeks. They saw these warriors set to cast their sharp shafts at young Jason's head. The Argonauts grew pale. Their courage failed. Even Medea, who had kept him safe from every menace, feared for Jason's fate. Alone he must withstand so many foes. She too grew pale and chill. About to faint she sat, and fearing that her gift of herbs might not be strong enough, she chose to add a spell, a chant drawn from a secret source. But Jason, who had hurled a massive stone into the ranks of his attackers, turned the fray away from his own self. Instead, they raged against each other, and the brothers sprung from the earth met death in civil war. The Greeks, exulting, crowd around the victor, embracing Jason eagerly. You, stranger, Medea, would embrace the victor too, but are restrained by modesty, although that would in truth have been no curb to you. It was your public name that held you back. But you're allowed your secret joy. You watch in silence, thanking magic and the gods who are the source of those compelling arts. Now one ordeal alone still waits for Jason. He has to put to sleep the wakeful dragon, the horrid guardian of the golden tree, the tri-tongued, crested serpent with hooked teeth. And when the son of Aeson sprinkles him with juices from a hypnagogic herb, and 3 times over has pronounced the words that bring calm sleep, that quiet troubled seas, that curb the river's flow, the dragon's eyes shut tight. They meet with sleep for the first time. The hero Jason gains the golden fleece, and proud of what he's won, he also takes another prize. The girl whose magic gave the victory to him becomes his bride, and he sails home, Medea at his side. And on their son's return, in glad thanksgiving, the mothers and the aged fathers bring their offerings and burn incense on the altars, and sacrifice the victim they had vowed, a bull with gilded horns. But in that crowd, one man is missing, Jason's father, Aeson. Now close to death, the long years weigh him down, and Jason says, "Dear wife, to whom I know I owe my own salvation, it is true that you have given everything to me. Your merits can't be tallied. They exceed all I could ever have relied upon. And yet, if you now can, and spells and chants and magic may accomplish even this, please take some portion of the years I'll live, and, since I am still young, assign that share to my dear father." And he adds his tears His filial piety has moved Medea. His generous request, and she, whose soul is so unlike the soul of Jason, calls to mind her own Aeetes left behind. But she does not betray that sentiment. She answers, "Husband, how can you permit such sacrilege to issue from your lips? Do you believe I have the power to prolong another's life, depriving you of years? Oh, may Hecate forever hold me back from that. And what you ask is too unjust. And yet there is a gift more marvelous, and, Jason, I shall try to grant you that. I'll try to lengthen Aeson's life, but not by shortening your days, for magic arts will be the means I use, if Hecate will help me realize this daring feat." The moon was 3 nights short of rounding out its horns, but when its circle was complete and shone in full upon the earth, then she, in a loose robe, barefoot, her hair uncombed and unadorned, went out to wander through the silences of midnight. Men, birds, beasts were all held fast by deep tranquillity. The hedges did not murmur, and the leaves did not stir. The humid air was motionless. Only the stars were glittering, and she stretched out her arms toward them. 3 times she turned around. 3 times upon her head she poured fresh river water, and 3 times Medea opened wide her lips and wailed. Then, as she knelt on the hard ground, she said, "O night, true guardian of secret rites, O golden stars who, when the flames of day retreat, emerge with the moon's rays, and you, O 3-formed Hecate, who are aware of our endeavors, you, who shield and shelter the chants and arts of sorcery, and earth, who offer to magicians potent herbs, you breezes, winds, and mountains, rivers, lakes, and all you forest gods and gods of shades, be my allies. It's with your help that I, at will, as the bewildered banks stood watch, have turned back river currents to their source. My spell can still the swollen sea and stir calm seas. I can expel and can convene the clouds. I can disperse or summon winds. My incantation burst the serpent's throat. I can uproot and move the rocks, the oaks, the forests. I can make the mountains quake, earth bellow. I can command the shades to leave their tombs, and even you, O moon, I can draw down from heaven's heights, although the clanging bronze of Temesa tries so to ease your agony. My song makes pale even the chariot of my grandfather the sun. My venom frightens even dawn. It's you who, to assist me, dulled the flames of those bronze bulls. You bent their stubborn necks beneath the curving plow, and you compelled the serpent's sons to war among themselves. It's you who made the watchmen yield to sleep for the first time. And so the golden fleece, once he had been bewitched, went back to Greece. Now I have need of juices to renew the life of an old man, so that he can regain his youth, the years that he first knew. I know that you will help me. It is plain the stars are glittering, and not in not in vain, drawn by the yoked winged dragons. A chariot is now at hand. Indeed, a chariot had been sent to serve her needs, a chariot from the sky. On mounting it, Medea stroked the dragons' bridled necks, then shook the light reins with her hands and soared on high. Below her lay the vale of Tempe in Thessaly. She steered her serpents toward the sights she knew so well. She scanned the heights of Ossa and of Pelion, of Othrys, of Pindus, and the taller peak, Olympus. And when she found an herb that served her purpose, Medea plucked it from the roots or cut the stem with her curved pruning hook of bronze. She also culled her herbs on river banks, on the Apidanus and the Amphrysus, and you, Enipeus, were not left untouched, nor were Peneus and Sperchios, just as Boebe's reedy banks were also plucked. And from Anthedon, town that faced Euboea, she culled an herb that gave new life, a grass not yet well known for what it did to Glaucus, whose body it transformed. 9 days, 9 nights had seen Medea travel. Driven by winged dragons, she had searched through every land. That done, the sorceress came home again. And though those herbs had touched no dragon, just the odor was enough. The dragons sloughed their aged skin. They were renewed, transformed. On her return, Medea stopped before she crossed the threshold of her house. She sought no other roof than heaven's spacious vault. She kept her distance, and with turf she built 2 altars, on the right to Hecate, and on the left to Youth. And these she wreathed with boughs from the wild wood's dark forest leaves. Then, not far off, she dug 2 trenches. These were meant to catch the blood of 2 black sheep that she now sacrificed. She plunged the knife into their throats. The wide pits overflowed. Then, from one goblet, on the blood she spilled pure wine, and from a second cup, warm milk. And she intoned her spells and called upon the deities who rule the under-earth, the monarch of the shades, and she whom he had stolen as his bride, his dark realm's queen. Medea begged for time. She asked that they not sever Aeson's soul too hastily from his exhausted body. After she had pacified the gods with these entreaties and murmured prayers, Medea had the body of the decrepit king borne out beneath the open sky. Then, with her incantation, into deep sleep she plunged the aged Aeson, and stretched him out, as one would a cadaver, upon a bed of grass. She called on Jason to leave. She had the servants sent away, warned all to turn aside their eyes, lest they profane the secret rites. They all obeyed. Now, left alone, Medea, with her hair dishevelled like a bacchant, round the pair of blazing altars circles, and she soaks the many-headed torches that she grips in the dark blood of sacrificial pits, and at the altar fires lights these brands. Then she proceeds to purify the body of the old king, 3 times with fire, 3 with water, and 3 times with sulphur she cleanses his flesh of all impurities. Meanwhile a potent potion boils and seethes and foams within a brazen pot, for she is now concocting roots that she had plucked in a Thessalian valley, brewing these with the most pungent juices, flowers, and seeds. To these she's added stones from the far east, and sands the ocean washed up on the beach, and hoarfrost gathered when the moon was full, and filthy wings, flesh still attached, of screech owls, together with the guts of a werewolf, which has the power to change its savage snout and show a human face. Nor was that brew without the liver of a long-lived stag, and thin and scaly skin of Libyan snakes, and, added to all of these, the head and beak of a crow, whose life spanned 9 full centuries. When the barbarian sorceress, with these as well as countless other nameless things, had readied what she needed to complete the gift she'd promised to the dying king, she stirred it with a stick of olive wood, a bough long since dried out. She took great care to mix the bottom and the top together, and when that olive stick had stirred around within that pot, at first the wood grew green, but soon it sprouted leaves, and suddenly it blossomed with plump olives, and wherever the hollow pot had splattered foam and froth, and warm drops fell onto the ground, the soil, as if in springtime, blossomed, bloomed, and showed soft grass. As soon as she saw this, she drew her sword out from its sheath and cut the old man's throat. And after letting his stale blood run out, she filled his veins with all that she had brewed. When Aeson, through his lips or through his wound, had drunk this potion, he was soon renewed. His grayness disappeared, his beard and hair turned black again, the look of long neglect, his senile scrawniness and pallor fled. The wrinkles on his flesh filled out, his limbs reclaimed the energy that had been his. And Aeson is bewildered. He recalls that this was his own self in days gone by, some 40 years before. Now from the sky Bacchus had seen this dazzling prodigy, and he concluded that his nurses could regain this way the beauty of their youth. And from Medea he received this gift, the secret of the potion she had mixed. That fraud might have its day in full, Medea pretended that she quarreled with her husband and fled, a suppliant, to Pelias's palace. He too, like Aeson, was weighed down by age, and so it was his daughters who received Medea, and in little time she had ingratiated them through guile and craft. And when she came to speak of her own deeds, she cited as her greatest feat the fact that she had freed from his senility old Aeson, Pelias's brother. Hearing this told by Medea with such emphasis, the girls, beguiled, were led to hope that she, in that same way, could help their father find again the youthful years he'd left behind. This is what they beseech. They want this gift, assuring her that she herself can fix her recompense. Medea does not speak. As if in doubt, she pauses, seems to weigh her answer. They are anxious, in suspense. At last, with sham solemnity, she says, I'd have you gain still greater confidence in what I want to do, my gift to you. My potions will transform your oldest ram, the leader of your sheep, into a lamb. Straightway they had that shaggy ram, that sheep, exhausted by his many years, let out. They tugged him by the horns that curved around his hollow temples. With a knife she'd brought from Thessaly, Medea pierced his throat, and from his wizened flesh such scant blood flowed, her blade was scarcely stained. The sorceress then plunged his carcass into a bronze vat, and added potent potions, herbs that shrank his limbs and burned away his horns, his years. And from within that vessel one could hear a tender bleating. And what soon appeared brought wonder to them all. A lamb leapt out and went in search of udders plump with milk. Astonished, Pelias's daughters felt that they could trust Medea's promise. They insist with still more eagerness upon that gift for Pelias. 3 times the sun had loosed its steeds into the Spanish sea, and stars had plunged into the waves of Ebro's stream. On that 4th night, the stars were glittering, when the deceptive daughter of Aeetes began to boil a cauldron of fresh water, to which she added herbs that had no power. Meanwhile, Medea's magic melodies and chants had put to death-like sleep the king, together with his watchmen. Now his body was slack, and just as she had bid them do, his daughters crossed the threshold of his bedroom, and there, beside Medea, ringed his couch. She said, Well, why do you hesitate? Act now! Take up these swords, and drain the old blood out, that I may fill his veins with vibrant blood. Your father's life and youth depend on you. If you have filial love for him, then prove your hopes are more than empty gestures. Do this service for your father. Let your blades expel the rot and rid him of foul age. Spurred by the witch's words, each girl was keen to be the most pious through impiety, most pure by rushing to impurity. And yet no daughter dared to watch as she brought down her blade. All turned their eyes away. Backs turned, they hacked. Their savage strokes were blind. And Pelias, though he was streaming blood, propped on his elbow, raised himself, with swords around him, half his flesh in shreds. He tried to get up from his bed. Then, as he stretched his pale arms toward his daughters, Pelias cried, What are you doing? What has prompted you to take up arms against your father's life? The daughters faltered. Hands and hearts drew back. He'd have said more, if not his throat and speech had been cut short by the sorceress, who cast his shredded flesh into the boiling vat. And if Medea had not soared on high with her winged dragons, she'd have had to pay a bitter price. But she flew through the sky above the shaded peak of Pelion, and over Othrys and the famous heights that saved Carambas's life in ancient times. Upon the wings the nymphs had given him, but by flight on high, he had escaped the waves that surged when the earth's mass had been submerged by the great flood in good Deucalion's days. Upon her left, as she passed Pitane, she saw the long stone image of the dragon. And she passed Ida's grove where Bacchus hid, beneath the feigned form of a stag, the ox his son had stolen, and the site where Paris lay buried underneath the shallow sands, where she who was transformed to Mera spread, with her strange barking terror through the land, and Kos, the city of Eurypylus, where women sprouted horns while Hercules and his invading ranks withdrew, and Rhodes, the island dear to Phoebus, and the town where the Talcines lived, Ialyssus, until they were submerged by Jove because their gaze infected anything they saw. Despising them, Jove called on Neptune's aid, and drowned them all within his brother's waves. And next she saw the lake of Hyriae, within the vale of Cycnus, famous for the swan that had appeared so suddenly. There Cycnus, a capricious boy, was served by Philios, who trained wild birds and tamed a savage lion. All of these he gave as gifts to Cycnus. But when he was asked to tame a wild bull and fulfilled that task, fond Philios refused to give that bull to Cycnus, who'd so often spurned his love. Offended, Cycnus cried, "But you will wish that you had given me this gift," and leapt down from a towering cliff. And all were certain he'd fallen, but he hovered in the air on snow-white wings. He had become a swan. His mother, Hyriae, was not aware that he'd been saved. She'd shed so many tears that she'd dissolved, became a lake that bears her name. Nearby lies Pleuron. It is there that Combe, Ophius's daughter, had escaped her son's death-dealing blades. She flew away on fluttering wings. And then the sorceress saw Latona's sacred isle, Calaurea, whose king and queen were transformed into birds. And to the right Selene lay, the peak where fate would have depraved Menaphron mate with his own mother, the incestuous way of wild beasts. When Medea looked far back, she saw the river god Cephalus weep for his dear grandson, whom Apollo changed into a plump sea calf. And she could see Eumelus's house, the home of one who mourned his son, who now lived in the air, transformed. At long last, borne upon her dragon's wings, Medea came to Corinth's sacred spring. Here, when the world was born, so we are told by ancient legends, mortal bodies sprang from mushrooms risen in the wake of rain. And it was here in Corinth that Medea now took atrocious vengeance, killing Jason's new wife. The sorceress burned her with poison, then fired the royal halls. The seas that bathe the two sides of the isthmus saw the flames. That done, the blood of her own infant stained her sacrilegious sword, and she escaped her death by fleeing Jason's upraised blade. Borne by the dragons of the sun, she fled for refuge to the citadel of Athens. This height had seen 3 metamorphoses. You, Phene, just one most just, became a bird and soared beside old Periphas, changed too. and Polypemon's daughter also flew with her new wings. Medea was received by Aegeus. Welcoming that fugitive was quite enough to blame him, but as if that act were not enough, he wed the witch. Soon Theseus came to Athens. Though King Aegeus had fathered Theseus, he had never known his son, whose courage now had pacified the isthmus bathed by seas on both its sides. Medea wanted Theseus dead, and so she brewed a potion with a plant she'd brought long since from Scythia's shores, a lethal herb spewed from the teeth of Cerberus, they say. There is a cave whose shadowed entranceway lies at the end of a down-sloping path, along which Tyrion's hero Hercules drags Cerberus in chains of adamant. The hound was furious. His eyes could not support the light, the glare of naked day, and tugging loose, his 3 heads barked as one, and, barking, sprayed the green fields with white foam. This slaver, so men say, coagulated and, nourished by the rich and fertile ground, became a plant that had the power to poison. An herb that grows and thrives upon hard stone, a plant the peasants call aconitum. In Greek, the word for whetstone is akone. Now Aegeus, whom Medea had deceived, was just about to have his own son drink this brew, as if he were an enemy, as Theseus, unaware of what they brought within his hand, held high the fatal cup. His father recognized the sign embossed upon the ivory hilt of Theseus's sword, and, from his dear son's lips, dashed down the cup. Medea fled her death. She hid herself within a cloud she conjured with her spells. But Aegeus, happy that his son was saved, was still dismayed. How close was their escape from an abomination! Now he gave the gods abundant gifts. He kindled fires upon the altars, and the sturdy necks of bullocks wreathed with garlands felt the axe. And the Athenians, so it is said, have never known a day more glad than that. The joy was shared by common folk and elders. They banqueted together. Wine inspired their artful songs in praise of Aegeus's son. O mighty Theseus, it is you who filled all Marathon with wonder when you killed the Cretan bull. And if in Crommyon the fields are safe and farmers now can till, with no fear of the awful sow, they owe that gift to you. And Epidaurus must thank you if it is free from Vulcan's son, that bandit Periphetes with his club. And on Cephalus' banks you felled the fierce Procris. In Eleusis, Ceres' city, you struck down Cercion. You shattered Sinis, whose massive power had horror as its end. The giant who could twist tree trunks and bend pine tops down to the ground his catapults, to rend and fling on high his victims' bodies. And it was you who freed Alcathoe, the citadel of Megara, by killing the bandit Sciron. Now we go in safety along that coastal road. Both land and sea refuse that brigand's bones, and it is said that strewn about so long those bones grew hard and formed the cliffs now called Scironian rocks. Were we to tally all your feats and years, your years would be exceeded by your deeds. Great Theseus, now we pray on your behalf. For you, in gratitude, we drain these draughts. Throughout the royal halls the people throng. Applause and prayers for Theseus echo loud. In all of Athens, gloom has been unhoused. And yet, Since joy indeed can't be complete and happiness is always marred by griefs, King Aegeus, glad to have his dear son back, still had his cares. For Minos now prepared to war on Athens. He had many men and many ships, but he was most equipped with anger, and he was bent on just revenge, retaliation for his son Androgeus, who had been killed by the Athenians. But first he sailed in search of allies, combing the seas with his invincible swift fleet. He gathered to his cause Astapalea and Anafe, the first by force, the last by promises, low-lying Mykonos, and to Chimelos with its chalky fields, and fertile Syros and the flat Seriphos, and Peros's marble cliffs, the isle that Arne had sacrilegiously betrayed, and she became the bird with black feet and black wings that to this day delights in golden things. But Giaros, Oliaros, and Tenos, and Andros, Didyme, and Parapetos, the island rich with gleaming olives, all refused to help the Cretan fleet, and Minos sailed left. He headed for Oinoipia, the realm of Aeacus. Oinopia had it been its ancient name, but Aeacus called it Aegina, honoring his mother. A crowd rushed out to see a man so famous. The king's 3 sons received him, Telamon the eldest, and his younger brother Peleus, and Phocus the third born, and Aeacus, solemn and slow beneath the weight of years, came too. He asked what had brought Minos here. Compelled to think of his own grief as father, Minos, the ruler of 100 towns, sighed deeply as he answered, "For the sake of my dead son, I'm set on waging war. I ask you to support my righteous cause. There is a tomb I'm anxious to console." But Aeacus, Aesopus's grandson, said, "You ask in vain. My city can't do this. In truth, there is no land with stronger ties to the Athenians than our Aegina. We are their close allies." Turning aside to leave dejectedly, Minos replied, "And you will pay most dearly for that treaty," and thought that, at this point, the better course was threatening war, not waging it. His men had best save their full force to shatter Athens. The Cretan fleet was still within eye's reach of those who lingered on Aegina's walls, when to the friendly port an Attic ship, full sail, rode in with Cephalus, who brought a message from his land to Aeacus. Although much time had passed since they had last seen Cephalus, the sons of Aeacus were quick to recognize him, and they clasped his hand and led him to their father's palace. The hero, still a formidable man, retained the signs of one who'd been most handsome. He'd entered with an olive branch in hand, and at his side he was the most senior presence. There came, one to the right, one to the left, young Cletus and young Butes, sons of Pallas. When they'd exchanged the greetings that precede such meetings, Cephalus conveyed the plea that he had brought from Athens. He beseeched the aid of the Aeginians, invoking the treaty of alliance signed long since by their forefathers. And he added this: King Minos was a threat to all of Greece. He made his case with eloquence and grace. And even as his left hand leaned upon the pommel of his scepter, Aeacus replied, "There's no need to entreat. We're allies. Take help at once. Whatever fighting force this island has is yours. We do not lack resources. I can count on ample ranks for our defense and our attacks. I thank the gods. These are good times. I can't deny what you Athenians have asked of us. I hope this happy state of things may last, and may your isle grow still more populous, said Cephalus. Indeed, on coming here, I was most pleased to see young men so fair, so matched in years. Yet I was struck by this. Many of those I'd seen on my last visit are missing now. And even as he sighed in sadness, the Aegean replied, Would I could tell you of the end without recounting the beginning. But I speak directly. Bones and ashes, corpses, these are what became of those your memory seeks. In taking them, death took much of my realm. The plague was sent by Juno in her rage against the people of the isle that bore her rival's name Aegina. A fierce scourge. At first it seemed a sickness nature caused, one to be fought with the physician's art. But medicine was thwarted, nothing helped. To start, thick darkness fell upon the earth. Beneath the mantle of the clouds the heat was stifling. When the waxing moon had reached its full orb, joining horns for the fourth time, then thinning, had undone its fourth full orb, the torrid south wind breathed its lethal breath. The pestilence infected lakes and springs, and thousands upon thousands serpents swarmed across the untilled fields, contaminating our streams with poison. The infection's force was first felt by the dogs, the birds, the sheep, the oxen, and wild beasts. The wretched farmer, dismayed, saw his stout bulls collapse midway into the furrows. Of itself the wool falls from the bleating sheep, their flesh is prey to ulcers, and the fiery horse that once was celebrated for his breakneck runs along the dusty course, can win no more. His glory gone, he moans within his soul, the death he faces is anonymous. The boar forgets his rage, the stag can't trust his speed, the bears do not assail strong herds. Now torpor takes all things, the woods, the roads, the fields are filled with fetid carcasses. The stench infects the air. That truth be told, however strange it seems, even the dogs, even the greedy birds, and the grey wolves won't touch the rotting corpses. Pus and stench spread far and wide, the raging pestilence. The plague then gains still greater strength, attacks the wretched country folk, and it holds sway within the city walls. It first inflames the guts. The outer sign of that disease is redness and a panting, fiery breath. The tongue grows swollen, rough. The burning jaws hang open to the scorching air. Men gasp and swallow every air. No one can bear to lie upon a bed, and none can stand a covering of any kind. Face down, each lies upon his belly on the ground. But the earth provides no coolness to the flesh. It is the soil that gathers heat instead from the hot bodies. None can offer help, ease the disease. The plague is pitiless, assailing even those who try to heal. The doctor's craft rebounds against themselves. For he who stays more close to the disease and cares for them most faithfully will meet his fate more speedily. And when they see that hope of ever being healed is gone, and death is inescapable, the sick obey their own desires, caring not if what they do is harmful. After all, nothing can help them. And chaotically unchecked, they crowd around the springs and streams and spacious wells. Their thirst is never quenched till life itself is spent. They drink till death. And many bloated cannot lift themselves out of the springs and streams, and so are drowned. But even with cadavers lying there, some of the sick still seek and drink those waters. As for the wretched, who are still at home, they can't endure their beds, and they leap up, or, if they are too weak, will just roll off their mattresses onto the ground, and all desert their houses. Home is hateful now. Not knowing what caused this disease, they blame their narrow dwelling places for the plague. Oh, you could have seen the half-dead roam the streets as long as they could stand, while those too weak lay stretched along the ground. There they would weep. Their straining eyes looked up a final plea, their arms stretched toward the sky, and then they breathed their last beneath the hanging heaven shroud. Here, there, wherever death had found them out. What did I feel? How could I not hate all life, not long to share my dear friend's fate? Wherever I would turn my gaze, men lay along the ground as acorns when one shakes the oak, or rotten apples when boughs sway. Oh, you see the temple with its long stairway, that shrine is Jupiter's. Who did not bring unto those altars useless offerings? How often did a husband, even as he prayed for his dear wife, a father, as he pleaded on his son's behalf, meet death before those cruel altars with a bit of unused incense still within his hand? How often did the bulls that they had brought collapse before the blade had done death's work, just as the priest pronounced the sacred words and poured pure wine between the victim's horns? Then I, for my own sake and for my land and my 3 sons, was offering a bull when suddenly, although no knife at all had struck, the victim bellowed loud and fell. It scarcely stained the knife with its scant blood. The guts were too infected to allow true signs, the warnings of the gods to show. The wretched plague had reached the viscera, and at the sanctuary's doors I saw abandoned corpses all along the altars. To render death more hateful, some had used a noose to end their lives. With death they drive away their fear of death. It would arrive in any case, but they would have it haste. And those dead bodies are not borne away with customary rites. The city gates are too strait for so many funerals. Unburied bodies lay upon the ground, or else, without the gifts one would expect, are heaped upon high pyres. All respect is gone. Men brawl for spots where they can cast cadavers and steal flames to burn their corpses. Oh, there's no one to shed tears. The children's souls and husbands roam unwept, the young, the old. No space is left for graves, no wood for flames. Struck by this storm of sorrows, I cried out to Jove, If what is said is truly told, and you embrace the daughter of Aesopus Aegina, and are not ashamed, great father, to be my forebear, then restore to me my people, or let me like them be buried. He answered with these signs, a lightning flash and thunder, his assent to my request. I said, I note the omens you have sent. I hope they signal your accord, your pledge. Nearby there chanced to stand a rarity, sacred to Jove, an oak whose crown was vast beyond all measure. That great tree had grown from seed belonging to Dodona's grove. Here we caught sight of ants that filed along a track they traced upon the wrinkled bark. They were seed-gatherers who bore great loads within their tiny jaws. I was amazed to see how many ants there were. I said, "Oh, gracious father, fill the emptiness of my dear land with citizens who match the number of these ants." The tall oak swayed, its branches rustled, though there was no wind. My body shuddered. My hair stood on end, despite my fear. I kissed the ground, the tree. I did not dare speak of my hope, and yet that longing in my soul was dear to me. Night fell. Sleep overcame my weary body. Before my eyes the self-same oak appeared, as vast as I awake had seen. Its boughs bore just as many beams. Then the tree swayed as it had, and scattered on the ground the ranks of those seed-gatherers who grew in size so suddenly, so constantly. With chests erect they rose up from the ground, and stood upon stout feet. Their fragile forms, their many paws, their blackness, all were gone. Their limbs had human shape. And then sleep left. On waking I rebuked myself for such an idle vision, and I blamed the gods for bringing me no help. But my ears caught a muffled roar. Within the palace sounds that seemed so unfamiliar. Human voices. And while I thought this too must be in dream, my dear son Telamon, as he rushed in, threw wide the door and cried, "Come see a thing beyond all hope and all imagining. Oh, father, follow me." I left the hall, and just as they'd appeared within my sleep, so did I see a file of human beings, men whom I recognized, and drawing near, they greeted me as king. To Jove I gave the gifts I had promised him, and to the men just born I portioned out my town, my lands, that had been stripped of their inhabitants, and I called my new subjects Myrmidons, for Myrmex, ant, recalls their origin. You've seen their outer guise. Within their ways remain what they had been, a frugal race of patient workers, men who gather gains with zeal and keep all they accumulate. These men, alike in age, alike in courage, are those who follow you to war as soon as Eurus, gracious wind that brought you here. For Cephalus indeed was helped by Eurus, has given way to austere. And long hours were filled with talk like this and other matters, and then day's end was spent in banqueting, and night in sleep. The golden sun's bright rays had risen. Eurus still was blowing hard, and the Athenians' homeward run was blocked. Joined by the sons of Pallas, Cephalus, their elder, went to wait on Aeacus. But deep sleep still held fast the king. It's Phocus, the son of Aeacus, who welcomes them upon the threshold, while his brothers, Pelias and Telamon, are busy marshalling the troops that will wage war. And Phocus leads the visitors to a secluded place, a handsome inner space, where they can wait. And as they sit together, Phocus sees the lance that Cephalus is carrying. Its point is gold, its shaft from strange tree. At first, young Phocus speaks of this and that, but in the middle of such small talk asks, I study woods and wild game with much care, yet I am puzzled by the shaft you bear. Of what wood is it made? If it were ash, it would be blonde, and cornel would show knots. I don't know where it comes from, but my eyes have never seen a javelin so fine. And one of Pallas's pair of sons replied, Even the beauty of this lance can't match the wonder of the way in which it acts. When it flies off, it catches, not by chance, whatever mark it tracks. Then it flies back, with no guide but itself, a bloodied shaft. And then the Nereid's son, young Phocus, asked just why that shaft was so miraculous, and who had given it to Cephalus. And this was the Athenian's reply, though when it came to telling what he paid to get that gift, he held his tongue, ashamed. A tale he told as tears burst from his eyes, even as he remembered his dead wife. Oh, this spear that you, son of a goddess, see, however hard it is to lend belief to what I say, compels me now to weep, and will yet make me weep in time to come, if fate allows my life to be prolonged. This shaft destroyed my precious wife, and me. Would that this gift had never been received. My Procris, who was Orythria's sister, and you may well have heard of Orythria, whom Boreas had carried off, was far more graceful and more gracious than her sister. She was a richer prize for ravishment. It's Procris whom her father joined to me. It's Procris who was joined to me by love. Men said that I was happy, and I was. But such good fortune did not please the gods, for if it did, I'd still be happy now. No more than 2 months after we were wed, when I, at break of day as darkness fled, had spread my nets to catch the antlered deer, the golden goddess of the dawn, Aurora, who'd reach Hymettus's ever-flowering peak, set eyes on me. She carried me away against my will. The simple truth is this. I only pray the goddess will forgive my telling it. My only love was Procris. Aurora may indeed be marvelous at break of day, with her rose-colored blush, and she may be the keeper of the gates between the light and night. Aurora sips celestial nectar. But I wanted Procris. She was the one on whom my heart was bent, the one who was forever on my lips. I kept on speaking of the sanctity of marriage, of the joys that she and I had known so recently, of the dear ties that had been knitted with my cherished bride upon the couch that I had left behind. The goddess felt the goad of my lament. She shouted, Stop your whining, you can keep your Procris, but if what my mind foresees is true, you will regret your loyalty. Enraged, she sent me back to my dear wife. Along the road to Athens, as I weighed Aurora's warning, I became afraid that Procris had betrayed her marriage vows. Her loveliness, her youth might well abet adultery. But on the other hand, her probity was proof against that threat. But I had been away, and I had stayed with one quite famed for infidelities. In any case, we lovers fear all things, so I decided to torment myself to test her honor and her faithfulness. Delighted by my doubts, Aurora helped my plan. She changed my face. In that new guise, I felt the difference. Unrecognized, I entered Athens, Pallas's sacred town. There were no signs of guilt within my house, only an air of chaste expectancy of waiting for the absent lord's return. It took 1,000 wiles, astute deceit, for me to gain the presence of my Procris. The sight of her so captivated me that I was almost ready to retreat from any test of her fidelity. It was so hard to hold myself in check, not to embrace my wife, not to confess the truth. She grieved, but there will never be a woman who can match the loveliness of Procris standing there in her deep sadness, her longing for the husband snatched from her. How often my petitions were repelled, how often she replied, "I save myself for one alone. Wherever he may be, it's he who'll share my joy." Oh, could any man whose mind was not awry have failed to see in that firm proof of her fidelity? But I was still not satisfied. I kept insisting, harming only my own self. For just one night I promised countless wealth, and then I added gift on gift until I forced her to the point where she might fall. At that I shouted, "He who faces you is one who, sad to say, is not a true adulterer. Beside you now it's I, your husband, whom you see. And it is these, my own eyes, that have spied your treachery." Oh, my wife did not reply. In silence she, ashamed, abandoned our insidious house and her disloyal husband. My offense led to her hate for all the race of men. She roamed the mountain slopes. She was intent upon the skills for which Diana cares. She'd left me. In my loneliness, the flame of love burned even more. Deep in my bones, I begged for pardon, and I recognized that I had sinned. I, too, if tempted by such splendid gifts, might well have set aside my scruples and succumbed. Once I'd confessed, and she'd had no more need to seek revenge for her offended honor. She came back, and then, in love and fond accord, we spent sweet years together. And as if the gift of her own self was not enough, she gave as gift to me a hound she had received from her Diana, who had said, "This beast will outrace all the rest." And to that she added this, "The javelin I carry." The fate of that first gift was so prodigious that it will stun you. Would you hear it now? Oh, when the dark riddle that the Sphinx had set was solved by Oedipus, no Theban's wit until he came had ever passed her test, the monstrous Sphinx leapt headlong from a cliff. There, enigmatic prophetess, she rests, dead even to the questions she had asked. But kindly Themis, do be sure of this, would never let such action go unpunished. And so she sent another pest to plague the Thebans, a ferocious fox that filled the countrymen with terror, threatening their herds and their own lives. And to their aid we came, young warriors from the lands nearby. We ringed their fields with nets to trap the fox, but she leapt over them across the top. Then we unleashed our hounds to track her down, but she, swift as a bird, outraced the pack. So all my comrades asked me to release the gift hound I'd received. His name was Laelaps. For some time now he'd strained against the leash, his neck was tugging hard. I'd set him free, and we lost sight of him, such was his speed. The warm dust showed the imprint of his feet, but Laelaps's self was nowhere to be seen. No pellet from a sling, no slender shaft sent flying from a Cretan bow, no lance has ever flown more swiftly than Laelaps. There is a hill whose summit overlooks all the surrounding fields. I reached the top. From there I watched a most uncommon chase. The fox seems to be caught, but now she slips away just when the hound has firmed his grip. The wily fox seeks no straight line escape, but twists and turns to trick his jaws to blunt the force of his attack. He's at her heels. He is as fast. He seems to catch her, yet he has not caught her. As he bites, his teeth snap shut on empty air. I now prepared to use my javelin. I balanced it in my right hand. My fingers tried to slip into the loop. My eyes were turned aside from that strange chase, and when I lifted them again to take aim with my javelin amid the fields, I saw a miracle. 2 marble statues, one in flight, whereas the other statue barked. You could have said, some god, if any god was there to watch, had surely seen the pair so closely matched that neither of the two could win that test. Here Cephalus broke off his tale, but Phocus asked, why did you accuse the javelin? At which the teller told how it had sinned. Oh, Phocus, sorrow has its origin in joys. First, I shall speak of my delights. How fine a thing to call back blessed times! Oh, in those first years, O son of Aeacus, I was delighted with my wife, and she was happy with her husband. Each of us cared for the other, a fond covenant. For even if she could have wedded Jove, she would have chosen me as her dear love. As for my heart, no other woman could have tempted me, not even Venus's self. In our 2 hearts there burned one equal flame. At that hour of the day when the first rays of sunlight touched the summits, I was used, as young men often are, to hunt for game. I would set out alone. I wanted no escort, no servants, and no horses, no keen-scented dogs, no knotted hunting nets. I had my javelin, enough defense. But when I'd had my fill of killing game, I'd go to seek some cool spot in the shade, just where a breeze blew up from the deep valleys. Light winds are what I wanted in that heat. I prayed for them to free me from fatigue. I cried out, Aurora, come! So I recall I'd often chant as if it were a spell. Come, dearest Aurora, find your tender way into my chest. I beg you to relieve, as you know how to do, this scorching heat. And then I may have added words as sweet as those before. Fate may have prompted me. Words that I would repeat insistently. You are my chief delight. You comfort me, refresh me. It's because of you I love the woods, the solitary glades. My lips are never weary of your gentle breath. Someone, I know not who it was, had lent his ears to all these ambiguities, and he mistook the aura that, again I had invoked, for some nymph's name, a nymph who had provoked in me love's flame. That rash informer hurried to my wife to tell her of my inexistent crime. To her he whispered every word he'd heard, and love is credulous. Struck down by grief, so I am told, she fainted. When she gained her senses, slow in coming back, she wept. She said she was wretched, and her long lament mourned her betrayal. In her misery over a sin that never was, she feared a nullity, a name without a body. Poor Procris grieved as if she had indeed a rival. Yet from time to time she felt some doubt and hoped that she had been mistaken. She would reject the tale of the informer, refusing to condemn her own dear husband if she'd not seen him sin with her own eyes. The next day dawned, and when Aurora's light expelled the night, I sought the woods again. My search for game went well, and as I roamed, I said, "Oh, Aurora, come, soothe my fatigue." But suddenly, before I followed that with my next word, I thought I heard a sort of groan. But I continued, "Dear one, come." This time some leaves fell, a faint rustling sound. I thought some beast had stirred. And then I cast my speeding javelin. The mark it met was Procris. As she clutched her wounded breast, she cried out, and I recognized the voice of my own faithful wife. Headlong I rushed, as if gone mad, to where my Procris was. I found her dying, even as she tore her blood-stained robe in her attempt to draw out of the wound the very shaft that she herself had given me. The wretched me! Upon my arm I lifted up most gently the body dearer to me than my own, and tearing from her breast a piece of cloth, I bound the cruel wound. I tried to staunch the blood. I begged her not to perish, not to leave me in my misery forever. Then, with her final effort near her death, these were the last few words that Procris said. "Oh, for the ties that join us, for the gods, those of the sky and those to whom I go, for any good I may have done for you, and for the love that brought my death, a love that I still bear you as I near my end, I beg of you, do not let Aurora take my place as wife upon our wedding bed." And only then did I first understand what caused the dreadful error. I explained, but of what use was explanation now? Her limbs fell slack. What meager strength she had fled with her blood. So long as she could look at anything, my Procris looked at me, and when her sad soul breathed its last, her breath fell on my lips, and yet she seemed content in death. Her face had gained serenity. These were the things that, even as he wept, the hero called to mind. The others shed their share of tears. Just then King Aeacus, with his 2 other sons and the fresh ranks of soldiers they had mobilized, came in, and Cephalus received those well-armed men.